Hello everyone, welcome back to another session of Spring of Code. Today we have a really awesome person with us, Eddie. So thanks a lot for joining us, Eddie. Would you like to tell us a bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on your awesome channel, Kunal. I love your content. It's great and love what you do for the community. So hi, everyone. My name is Eddie. I know a lot of you from the chat already. I recognize some names and I see some new names as well. So I'm super excited to geek out with you all. I'm a GitHub star, and I actually won GitHub Star of the Year. That means I was selected one out of over 55 million people on GitHub. And I love open source, and I love getting more people into open source. I mean, that's my goal. And I really believe that open source is not just about code, it's about collaboration. Actually, it's probably more about collaboration than code, but also it's about everyone learning from each other. So we believe in the EddieHub community that everyone is a mentee, but also everyone is a mentor. I'm learning from everyone every day, and hopefully I'm sharing and helping people learn every day as well, just like everyone else. So yeah, just super excited to be here.
Thanks for joining, Eddie. And yeah, we'll talk more about that, how students can get involved with the community EddieHub and what all amazing things that people do. And yeah, we'll talk more about open source and all these things. So feel free to send your questions in the comments, and we'll make sure we answer those. But yeah, let's get started with with just a basic like for those of you who are not aware about EddieHub. So could you maybe explain why was it started and what is it that you do in the community?
Sure. So I think it started, I mean, it's going back quite a few months now, maybe like 6 months. And well, I should tell a lie. The official name started in January when the community said, let's join the MLH local hack day build hackathon, and let's make a guild called a guild for us. And then people came up with names, and EddieHub stuck. So that's the name we used. But we had been around a bit longer than that, than January. And we were just called kind of EddieJoud community, and I'd been meaning to rename that. I just couldn't think of a good name that had a hashtag that hadn't been used, and all that sort of jazz. And it really started because I was doing live streams on my YouTube channel, and I wanted to encourage people and help people into open source. I think it's one of those things that it can kind of be a bit scary because you've got to find a project, you've got to then find an improvement, you've got to get feedback on your improvement, but at the same time, you've got to understand the workflow of forking a project, making the changes, updating your fork, and all these sorts of things. So I wanted to help people on live streams, and then I want other people to help people so I could scale even more. So for me to do YouTube videos and live streams allowed me to reach more people and help more people. But I still wanted to reach more. And I felt if I built a community on Discord, then people could help each other. So it wasn't always me helping each other. So if I help one person, they now know how to do it. They could help two people. Those two people could help two people, and so on. And that's actually how it works. And I think that's how it came about. And when people join, they get such a warm welcome from everybody. And I really love that. I really love how our community is super inclusive. And that's one thing we have. Like, we have a bot that if someone comes in and says, hey guys, the bot says, warning, wait a second, maybe you should say, hey folks, hey people. And I love people have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the bot for flagging up certain words, but I really love it how it might take people time to warm to it, but then they do become super inclusive afterwards, and that's really important to me.
Most definitely, and that's a really good point. And also, yeah, Eddie did mention the Discord channel. So I have, by the way, linked the channel name, the Eddie's YouTube channel name, in the description below. So make sure you check that out and hit the subscribe button and check out all the amazing content that Eddie is posting over there. But you mentioned about open source, and I often hear you say open source is for everyone, right? So that I've seen quite a lot of times, and I totally agree with it. But can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure.
What does it actually mean? Like, for example, one of the one of the key areas where I see people struggling when first starting with open source is they get overwhelmed, right, when they see a particular project, and they feel like, will I be welcomed in this community? Because there are like so many good coders, right, already making some big contributions. How can I do any contribution? So can you maybe elaborate a bit more on that? Like, what do we mean by when we say open source is for everyone?
Sure. So open source is for everyone because you don't have to be a coder to contribute to open source. My video editor is on GitHub. My wife, who's a lawyer, is on GitHub, because they can add value to a project in ways that I can't. For example, my video editor gives me feedback on my videos. She's in Ukraine, so she can do Russian translations for me for my closed captions for my YouTube videos. They go into GitHub and I copy and paste them into YouTube. My wife checks my English for blog posts, websites, etc. And we use GitHub to manage this, because it's just so useful to have the project board, have the issues, have the pull requests, because it's not just about code. So if my English gets improved by my wife, then she can make changes and I can just check it in the maybe it has some HTML or markdown in the page, just check that hasn't been broken. It's very easy for me to see what has been changed rather than trying to compare two blocks of text and just kind of look like this. GitHub highlights that for us. So I think it's for everyone for two reasons. One, because it's for everyone, as in everyone can get involved. You don't have to be a coder. And two, because GitHub and open source is not just about code. People have blog posts, as I mentioned, recipes, legal documents. There's so many things on there, and so other people can get involved. And they don't have to use Git and the command line. They can't, both of them, for example, at the moment, and probably will forever, use just the web interface. There's a lot you can do via the web interface. Obviously, as coders, we want to do more than we need the command line. But for other people who want to contribute and value to a project, they can use the web interface. And yeah, so it's for everybody, and because everything that can be on GitHub, and more things are moving to GitHub. I think you had 2 points in your question. I think I maybe have answered one and not the other one.
Yeah, I was just there's just one more question. Like, what do you feel like is the thing that students struggle with, right, when they're first starting with open source? Yeah,
sure. So when they first struggle, I think it's the process. I know I struggled. So I've been in open source for over 10 years, and we didn't have Git or GitHub back then. We were still making contributions, but there was no such thing as pull requests. And even when I got onto GitHub, I don't know how many, when it first came out, it was confusing, because you've got a fork. How do I keep it up to date? And there are lots of little moving parts and variables. And that's why I always recommend people to get started and get involved in the conversation. And you mentioned about hard to find projects. I'll get back to that in a second, but it's good to understand the workflow. And I do have some videos on this, and they probably need updating. So the questions from people are super awesome, because that helps me, come up with new content ideas and helps me improve the way I help people. So I love the questions. But yeah, finding a project is difficult, and I think you're never going to find the perfect project. Even once you understand the workflow, raising an issue, forking a project, making your changes, making a pull request, updating your fork, you're never going to find the perfect project without getting involved in the conversation. And when you find a project, do check the closed pull requests and the closed issues, especially the closed pull requests. I don't mean the ones that have been merged, but the ones that have been closed without being merged, and see if the maintainer has left a comment and said, thank you so much for your contribution, but this is not a feature we want at the moment. Check out issue 1, 2, and 3. They want you to contribute, but there are some projects, not all, but there are some where they just close the pull request with no comment, and that's not really an inclusive project. It can be very disheartening for somebody who wants to get involved and wants to help, but just gets closed with no feedback. I'm quite used to kind of bad comments on YouTube, on GitHub, and all the rest, but even when my pull request just gets closed without a comment, I get upset. I just think, well, you could have said why. Like, is it something you didn't want? Is it bad? You could have just said like one sentence or one line about it. So definitely don't waste your time and contribute to those projects. And I think also a lot of people want to contribute to the big projects like React or whatever it is. And the difficulty with those projects is, as I mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts. But not only that, the projects move very quickly. So say, for example, you made a pull request to React. By the time it's been reviewed a day or two later, by the time you get back to it a day after that, the whole project has moved on so fast. So you could end up more likely to end up with more conflicts. So I'm not saying not to contribute to those projects. I'm just saying it's not a good place to start, because again, it's disheartening. You get a conflict, then by the time you fix the conflict, they might have another one. And you kind of just get in this, conflict loop hell, as it were. And I would say start off with community projects from your friends, from people in the community. And once you get more confident, work your way up to the bigger projects.
Most definitely. And there's good first issues for a reason, right? So
yes.
we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, I agree with every single point Eddie made. and I see like a lot of people are excited for what is it like the local hack day coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. See a lot of familiar faces over here.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
awesome to see so many familiar faces and new faces. Well, I love making new friends on live streams. This is epic.
Most definitely. And yeah, if you are just joining, make sure you check out Eddie's channel. The link's in the description. And yeah, I totally agree with that point. And there was a point you mentioned at the very beginning is like coding is not the only way to contribute to open source, because when you're contributing to a really large scale projects, there's a lot of things going on, right? So there's one thing that a project cannot get enough of is documentation, for example. So you can contribute to their documentation, you can contribute to their community work. So yeah, for example, Kates and CNCF projects, right? So many such large scale projects. They have like so many important roles specifically for people who, you know, want to do like things like, you know, contributor experience and documentation and releases and all these things. So definitely like, yeah, collaboration first, code second, because coding, open source is much more about, you know, much more than coding. And we have a question over here, like regarding the thumbnails, right? So whose idea is it to create thumbnails, you or your wife?
Actually, mine. I'm terrible at them, and I do them. And yeah, I keep trying different things. So I think for the last couple of months, I tried like a brown-esque yellow mustard color thumbnail. It hasn't worked so well. So I think a couple of days ago, I started changing to like a red to match my banner. And then on my second YouTube channel, which is just only YouTube Shorts for 1 minute or less videos in portrait mode, I've gone for a different kind of greeny color. So but that's new from like a week old channel. So I'm just experimenting with different things at the moment. So feedback, welcome.
That's relatively new. Can you tell me a bit more about that, the new channel?
Sure. So I started doing YouTube Shorts on my main channel, and I just felt I got a mixed reaction. Like some people loved it, some people hated it, and I just thought I didn't want to kind of pollute my channel after doing it for a month with vertical videos, because it is kind of annoying on the computer to look at vertical videos. So I thought a second channel where I can focus on 1 minute or less only videos that are in portrait mode for mobile phone. So I started that like a week ago. I've got like 5 videos up there. I'm trying to do like videos every couple of days, just short, punchy tips on how to do stuff. And I got a whole list of ideas of stuff that I want to share. But I'm also open to ideas. So if people have any ideas of like kind of video ideas, 1 minute tips, let me know. And you know, maybe some people want to give themselves a shout out. If someone wants to create a 1 minute video, then maybe I could also try posting it on that channel as well. You know, you don't have to be in the video. So my 1 minute videos, I'm not actually in them because it's quicker to make, just screenshots, voiceover. And I'm trying different things, and I love it how with the community I get such amazing feedback, and we just come up with different ideas, and it's just awesome. The open source community, and it's not just about coding, it includes our YouTube channels as well, right? You know, we're all involved in open source here, and we're doing a live on YouTube. It's just so much fun. I mean, if you don't mind me saying one more thing about my YouTube channels, one thing we did start a couple of weeks ago was called Radio Eddie. And so on our live streams, so tonight, for example, 5 p.m. GMT, we're going to be reviewing everyone's open source projects and giving them shout outs and all the rest, and helping them get green squares, helping them get contributors. But we're doing this Radio Eddie style where people can just kind of like almost like call in via Discord audio, so they can join me on a live stream for a few minutes and give some feedback on someone else's project or on their project. Just trying to include the community more. I think, I'm trying to include them as much as possible. But I'm open to ideas. So any suggestions from you or anyone else, definitely let me know. And thanks for that comment as well.
Yeah, most definitely. That's a great idea. And like basically what you mentioned, getting community people, folks, onto the channel, sharing their experiences, like more like a show and tell, and like public shout out, right? Because that's important. Giving shout outs. If you want to appreciate someone, do them in public. That was that was something I wanted to, share with everyone. But let's, go ahead.
I was going to say, and on that note, everyone, you need to subscribe to Code for Cause's channel, of course. I'll give this video a thumbs up, but also, if you want to grow your network, which is really important, I hope we can get time to touch on this later about your personal branding and growing your network so people can find you and offer you the jobs and you the internships. But take a screenshot of this live stream and tag Kunal, tag me if you want, and share it on socials. And I guarantee you will like it. But if you want to get a reshare, so our community discovers you and you can grow. Add value to that post. So take a screenshot, and one thing you've learned, or one thing that you remembered, or one thing that you loved, or whatever it was, add value to people who weren't on this live stream, and then we will reshare it, and you can grow your network from our network. And it's like a two-way street. I think with everything, it's two-way street.
Let's give a pose or something.
Okay, yeah, good idea. Screenshot. Unless people want my behind-the-scene camera. Screenshot.
Can you do the previous pose again?
Yeah, sure.
Nice. There we go.
Cool.
All right. And people are asking for what's the time in IST. So I'll be converting that and sharing with you. But till then, let's take a few questions. I see a question over here, which is...
Loads of chatter.
This is a good question. Yeah. So there's this question: if it is a good first issue, then why doesn't the person creating the issue resolve it?
I love that question. It's a really good question.
Yeah.
And sometimes they will. So as project maintainers, we create an issue for good first issue that is for people to get involved. We want to kind of grow the community around our project. So we're trying to encourage people to get involved, and a good first issue is probably a bit easier. It's probably should have a better description of step-by-step points of what people can do to complete that issue. But after a while, if it stays there for a long time, the maintainer will probably just do it. But getting those green squares is really important. So it's not about actually the green squares, but when if you're applying for an internship or a job and someone comes to your GitHub profile, the green squares are important, but also at the same time not important. It's like a first impression. So you need those green squares as someone to look at your repo and go, okay, this looks interesting. Let me dig deeper. But actually, the green square itself isn't important. When they dig deeper, they'll see how you collaborate with people. So when I hire people for my clients, I always look at people's GitHub projects. But I'm not looking for what people think I'm looking for. I'm not looking, is their latest code the best code in the world? Because if they're learning, then it's probably not the best code. And if it is the best code today, it won't be tomorrow, because we're all always learning. So what I'm looking for is the code better than it was 3 months ago? That's why it's important for people to share their learnings as they go along, rather than completing a project and trying to post it all in one go. So it's important to share as you go along. And also how you collaborate with people. I've seen some really good coders that we haven't hired before, because when they reply to an issue, or when they raise an issue, or review someone's pull request, or someone reviews their pull request, they write a really terrible reply. And you can't collaborate with those sorts of people. So that's why it's important to review someone else's pull request. Even if you're not a project maintainer on the project, review the pull request. And if you're new to tech, or you don't know the technology, that adds value, because you can give a kind of a new, fresh perspective on it, and you can say, well, this doesn't make sense. What did you mean? And the other person might say, oh, well, that's an assumption that I made that most people won't know, so I should improve that. So yeah, it's important for everyone to get involved and do everything, as Kunal said, do everything publicly. Don't DM people and say, hey, I found your good first issue. Can you help me on it? Because that doesn't help the project, doesn't help yourself, and doesn't help the maintainer. Definitely do it all publicly.
Most definitely. And solving issues is something definitely you should do in public, because let's say after you have solved the issue, coded and everything, after a few months, people are like, oh, what happened over here, right? This change was made, and what was the entire discussion? So they can just go through the issue tab and see all the conversations and everything, and try to see what changes were made, why they were made. But can you maybe also you have mentioned a very good point regarding getting other people's, reviewing other people's PRs. So can you share some best practices for that when we are reviewing someone's PR?
Sure. Before I get to that, I just want to touch on your previous point about the issues. Another kind of test I do when hiring people for my clients is I ask them, we talk about the project, that whatever project we're talking about, and I ask them to raise an issue. And it is important that they raise a good issue, not just a title that makes sense to them and maybe me at that time, because the next day after I've had 100 other conversations, looked at another 100 issues, it might not make sense. And it needs to make sense to other people who are not there. So it's kind of another mini test that we do, that they say, because a lot of people write, following our discussion, I'll do A. It's like, but what discussion? Not everybody was there. And it's important to include, copy and paste from Discord or whatever it is, or even just kind of paraphrase from the person. and tag them to show that's what was discussed. It's important to have that. And that's why when also interviewing people, I can really see the ones that contribute to open source, because they would write an issue or pull request very differently. I'm not saying write a massive book, but at least give context to the people that weren't involved in the conversation. And your question was for how to make a good pull request, was it?
My question was some best practices when you're reviewing someone's pull request.
Got you. That's a lovely question, because it is hard to review someone else's work, because you might write something that you mean in a positive, nice way, and to say, why did you do this? But when somebody else is reading it, they might feel attacked and be defensive. So it's important to do everything as a kind of like a polite question, and it takes practice. And I know everyone is busy, so it is hard, but it is important to foster that good collaboration. So, for example, it can be, there's some great blog posts on this, but to give an example, it's, I think you should do, rather than kind of telling someone what you should do, you got to make it clear that it's an opinion, and you will collaborate on the best way to do it. Because I'm always learning, even after 15 years as a full stack developer and over 10 years in open source, I'm still always learning, still always improving, and everyone else is too. And I think when they realize that, their career will go to the next level, because they realize that they need to learn and need to collaborate with people. Because if we think about it, we always say, well, in EddieHub, we say collaboration first, code second. But to back it up and prove it, when you want to make a change to someone's project, you raise an issue. So that's collaboration. And then once it's agreed and you kind of know what you're going to do, you make the changes and you raise a pull request. The pull request will contain the changes, but then you're going to talk and discuss and collaborate on the changes. So it's collaboration, changes, collaboration. And notice when I said changes, I didn't say code, because it could be documentation, tests, deployment. It could be a whole raft of things. But it takes practice, and you can't like watch somebody. If you got a personal trainer and went to the gym, you can't just watch them do the exercises and you think you'll understand it. It'd be like watching a tutorial or following a blog post for a tutorial. You can watch it and you will learn stuff, or you read it and you will learn stuff. After a while, you got to get your hands dirty and you just got to do it, and you'll learn like 100 times more by doing it.
Most definitely. And yeah, you can also give, what the way I do it is, you can start the PR, you can start the comment with, hey, this is some solid work, looks amazing, just a few questions. Starting with a positive note helps. Using emojis sometimes helps, if someone is a student or something. And yeah, that is true. And we have one more question regarding, getting started with open source. So now we can frame this in such a way like, they're saying that it seems daunting seeing the issues in the code base. So what is what we can do is, maybe you can tell us, you can tell the students a few things to keep in mind when you're first starting out with open source.
Yes, definitely. So one thing you definitely keep in mind is you can do nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong you can do. If you raise an issue that doesn't make any sense, the project maintainer would just say, sorry, it doesn't make sense, and close it. You're not going to die. You're not going to lose any money. You're not going to it's not going to ruin your life. So definitely, just get involved. Any shape or form, leave a comment, leave a reply, raise an issue, whatever it is. Even if you fork the project, which means you want to make a copy of it into your own account so you can make changes, and you deleted all the files in the project and submitted a pull request to the project, the maintainer isn't going to accept it, so you're not going to delete all their files. And even if they did accept it for whatever accidental reason, they can still undo those changes. So nothing you can do can go wrong. So I think a lot of people kind of a bit nervous about doing something. I think if in doubt, do it. Actually, occasionally do a live stream where we get people who are really new to open source to raise issues, raise pull requests. And we do have in the EddieHub community organization on GitHub, we do have practice repositories where there's like one where you can just add your name to the list and the README just to practice that kind of workflow. And then you can work up harder to contributing to our community website. Then you can get involved in the actual Discord bot that we build. And there are so many things to keep leveling up, but people are not going to learn without doing it and getting involved. I think that's really, really important. I mean, if everyone here who is new to open source can do me one favor, by the end of the weekend, just make sure you do something on GitHub. And trust me, you cannot do anything wrong. Just do it. Take that first step.
Just do it. Exactly. Great, Eddie. Thanks a lot for sharing. There's one question, and I used to wonder about this but never asked, which is why you always look like you're going to a war in your thumbnails.
Okay, shall I give the answer? Okay, we go with
Yep.
drum roll. Do you hear the drum roll? I don't know if you do or not.
I don't.
Oh, you don't hit the drum roll. It doesn't work. Okay. So the reason I don't know. I just want to do something a bit different, and so I'm always kind of screaming. Everyone always says, even my wife's like, "Eddie, why are you always screaming in your thumbnail?" My thumbnail for today is slightly different. I'm not screaming for once, I think, but I'm open to suggestions. I'm really bad at the poses, so any suggestions and feedback, let me know. I'm happy to change those.
No, I like it. It's like unique, and I'm planning on doing some, but I need to click some photos. But just thumbnails are experimental, right? You experiment with thumbnails and see what works for your audience. So definitely, yeah. And I see people are watching after their college exams, and there was this one person who said that they had their class right now, and they're watching this session. So cool.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right, and there's one good question. So when we are talking about open source, we often hear this term called the mailing list, right? Which is very important because if you're contributing to open source, you will get stuck somewhere. So where do we ask those questions? Well, on the mailing list, on the public channel of the code base and all of the project, basically. So where all the maintainers and everyone are hanging out. So do you have any tips for that, like getting started with mailing list, and what are some best practices for that regarding communicating with people?
Sure. I mean, every project is different. So some will have a mailing list. Some will use GitHub discussions, which is a new feature came out, I think, a couple of months ago. And it is really awesome. It's like issues, but it's like threaded. So you can have threaded conversations and you don't action those. So what we do a lot of the time, you still get a green square for raising a discussion. So what we do a lot in EddieHub is if we're going to have a discussion about it, we try not to have it too much on Discord because it gets lost. So if we have an idea, we'll start a GitHub discussion, discuss it, and then when we've got the kind of a bit more of a concrete idea of what we want to do, then we'll raise an issue from it. So we, for example, use GitHub discussions. Some people use mailing lists. Some people use Discord. Some people use Stack Overflow or Gitter. I would check the contributions.md and the README file and see what they do. And there's two things here. One, a lot of people don't read these, and I would highly recommend reading them. But also on the flip side, it might not contain that information. And if it doesn't contain that information, then that's a contribution and value you can add. If you figure something out, then you could contribute that back to the README to help the next person. That's why I love it when people in client projects or even in EddieHub projects, they say, Eddie, can you explain this project to me? Because I want to get involved, but I don't know what it does. I say, well, have you read it? And they say, well, I haven't really looked. I say, have a look. And if you don't understand it, there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with our project. And when they say, okay, well, this part doesn't make sense, what does this mean? Then we can improve that. And therefore, the next person, it makes it better. So it keeps getting better every time someone looks at it and gets involved in the project. So everyone's fresh. What I'm trying to say is everyone's fresh pair of eyes add value. So if it's not clear how you can ask questions, then just maybe raise an issue. You might upset upset a few of the purist people, because usually issues are for actual creating like action points. But then at least everyone will know for next time, will know that something's missing. But make sure you check the README and the contributors file, because nothing worse than checking those. Sorry, not checking those. Oh, that's my alarm. There's nothing worse than not checking those and someone saying it's in the first line of the README. And I have seen that happen quite a few times before. So do have a look at those.
Yeah, most definitely. And one more way, like you can get involved in the community and learn more about the project is they have the regular meetings, right? Many projects. So those meetings are like, you can attend those and just see what people are working on. And over there, just like, if you don't have anything to add, then just listen, and ask questions, for example. And that's how, it's also one way you can, get more involved in the community. There's one question, and before a question is this thing people are saying, a petition for Code for Cause and Eddie to do a session on Twitter Spaces. I have never used Twitter Spaces.
Let's do one.
Yeah, let's do one. I'll follow up with you after this stream, and
Sure,
we'll do
sounds
one
good.
that works for as many time zones as possible.
Yeah,
So yeah, let's do that. But yeah,
sounds
there's
good.
one question which is on was when you're first starting with like Git and GitHub, right? So I personally believe watching as many tutorials as you can. If you don't get any hands-on experience, you will not get the feeling of Git and GitHub. So would you like to add something to that? Like it's taking tutorials for GitHub. I mean, definitely you start with tutorials, but what do you think about this?
I think you've got to find, you're absolutely right. You've got to find that balance. You need to
Hmm.
start by watching a tutorial or reading a tutorial, whatever the form is good for you. But after a while, you've got to time box it. Like, don't spend like a month doing that, because when you've got a rough idea of what you need to do, just give it a go. Like riding a bicycle, okay? You know, someone explains to you that the brakes are on the handlebars, and you got the pedal. These are the pedals that you move forward. You kind of get an idea, and you've just got to try it. And you probably will fall off the bike, but then you'll learn, and you'll learn really fast by doing it. So first of all, I would say start with GitHub. Don't look at Git, because although underneath it is Git, GitHub's web interface abstracts a lot of that for you. So you can still do commit messages, branches on GitHub. And later on, when you want to do more, then you can add in Git to your flavor. Don't try and do both, because although there's a lot of overlap with the terminology, it is different, because one's on the command line and one is in the web. So I would definitely start off with GitHub first, and just you can make a test project and just start playing. Like, actually, one thing that everyone here can do for me, write in the chat, everybody, if you've customized your GitHub profile. Write maintainer in the chat if you've customized your GitHub profile. And what I mean by that is not you've added a bio or anything like that. I mean by you've got a repo that is the same name as your username, because by doing that, you are all effectively project maintainers. People can contribute to you. And if you haven't done that, please do that. If you go to new repo and create the same repo, the same name as your username on GitHub, it will give you a template. Just hit create. That's it. You're going to have a very minimal customized GitHub repo. But now the repo is there, then other people can add value to it, and you can tweak it. And I say this all the time. It's like every project is like brushing your teeth. You don't want to try and spend a whole weekend trying to make a perfect customized personal GitHub repo, because it's not going to be perfect. What you want to do is every day or every other day, just make little tweaks to it, like brushing your teeth. And if you miss a day or miss 2 days, your teeth aren't going to fall out, and your GitHub profile is not going to die, or whatever it is. But it's important. Over a month, over 2 months, you'll be like, wow, my GitHub profile looks really awesome. And if I can add one more thing to that, Kunal, it's when you contribute to projects, everyone keep them small contributions. Each contribution, be it an issue, be it a pull request, just needs to add one piece of value. If you've got an idea, raise an issue for that idea. If you've made the change for that idea or that bug fix, raise a pull request for that. Don't try and incorporate 5 different things in that issue or 5 different things in that pull request, because 1, no one's going to want to review that. 2, it will delay your pull request getting reviewed and getting merged in. And to give a concrete example, someone said, Eddie, I want to do the contributor file on this project. And I loved it that they were really passionate about doing it. And they've actually got a pull request open on my client project that's open source. I'm showing everyone behind the scenes and how I work on a client project as a freelancer. But the problem, we haven't merged it yet. And it's been open for about 2 weeks because it's so big. It's like 4 pages of text or something like that. And there's so many different comments, conversations going on. And it's not adding value to the project because it hasn't been merged in yet. The best way to add value, if there's a missing file, like a contributors.md file, then add the file and add one line of value, because that can get merged in quickly. It can add value to the community. And now the file is there. Other people can start adding one line. And so I think it's really important for people to think it's got to add value. And it just needs to be one focused piece of work. It doesn't have to be many lines of changes. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, most definitely. Like there's this thing called like, stack PRs and like breaking down bigger PRs into like smaller ones. That makes it easier for maintainers to also review. So yeah, if you feel like PR is too big and it's not getting reviewed, that's probably the reason. But there's one question we have over here. Why does a developer need so many screens?
Okay, I think the sound effects might be working now. So let me see. Is the sound effect working or no? Okay, it's working. Okay, good.
Okay.
So many screens. Well, Usually when I'm pairing with people, I will have, this is my screen here and this screen here in front of the camera so they can see me. So these are my two screens. And I'll usually have the chats on the screen on the left. And I'll have the person I'm pairing with on their screen up here. And I will have this screen shared with them as well. We might be doing VS Code live, but I don't want them to see, say, my emails. So my emails and other stuff is on this screen. So this is probably too many. And as I'm going digital nomad, I'm going to be moving around the world in 2 months, every month or a couple of months or so. I have to condense this into a portable kit. And what's scary is that you're only seeing half of my home office studio. So I don't know how I'm going to kind of reduce all this down so I can fit it in a suitcase or two.
Yeah, I
but
saw
multiple
the
screens help.
I saw
Sorry,
the setup video you posted. Yeah.
Oh yes, the time lapse.
Yeah, the time lapse. Yeah. Cool. And people are saying Eddie short bloopers are hilarious. Most definitely.
Thank you.
We all can agree with that. Okay. Let's see if we have questions. Okay. So there's this question we have: if I find an issue to work on, should I directly work on it or should I ask the organization for help or something? Because few orgs expect to ask. Basically, do we need to wait for us to get assigned? Is basically what they're asking.
It's again, each project is slightly different, but I would always ask because someone else might be working on it and you're not aware of it. Or if you do start working on it and you're like 90% of the way through and someone just gets theirs in sooner, some projects will take the one that comes in first. Some projects will take the one that's better. And better is not necessarily just coded better, but better kind of pull request description and so forth. So I would always say, look, I want to work on this project, on this issue. I would also do some research and say, look, I think step 1, 2, and 3 need to be done. Is this correct? Rather than so many people go to projects and say, I want to do this, help me. And no one's going to reply because they want to help you, but they want to know that you want to help yourself as well. Like, you know, if you're hungry and you want to eat dinner, you're kind of not going to sit there and say, well, I want you to make my food. Fine. But I also want you to feed me. No, you know, you kind of need to feed yourself. So I think you're going to show that you're making an effort. Say that you've done a bit of research. And if you don't understand how to do the whole issue, that's fine. Say, oh, I see I need to do part, you know, this step and this step, but I think there's another step and I don't know how to do that. Can someone help me? And if you raise a draft pull request with steps 1 and 2, for example, but you need help with 3, they're definitely going to help you because now they've shown that you've committed. Because a lot of people ask for help, the maintainers spend time helping them, and then it's happened to me many times, and then the pull request never gets created. So you've kind of helped somebody, and everything's a two-way street. We want to help people, but then we want people to contribute back and all the rest. So yeah, make an effort first, and then you're more likely to get better feedback. And especially if you're more specific in your questions. I see people write on issues, I want to do this issue, but I'm stuck. It's like, but stuck on what? What part of the issue? You're stuck on starting the project, you're stuck on forking the project, and it just ends up with this huge conversation. It makes the issue really kind of polluted, and no one else wants to work on it now because it's got like 100 comments that are just, you know, don't add value. So I would definitely say, well, like, this is clear, but I'm stuck on this specific part. What do I do? This is what I've tried. This is what I've looked at. The more value and the more information people can add, I think the more likely they're going to get help from maintainers and other people in the community.
Most definitely. And that's a very good point. Learning how to ask good questions, not just for like open source, but in general, like if you're working remotely. And, you know, just 1 second. Jonash was on the channel with us one day, and he mentioned a very good point, which was no one is async unless everyone is async, right? So because if you're working with various time zones, which you often do in open source, and you're sending a hi to a person, that person will see your hi after 12 hours. Now they will reply hello. Now 24 hours have passed and your question is still not answered. So yeah, just asking good questions is very, very important.
I love that. I gotta reiterate that. That is amazing. It's really true. The amount of messages that I get that are hi or hello, and by the time I see them, it might even be like 2 days later. Yeah, absolutely right. People's time is valuable, and I think if other people don't respect their time, they're not going to give you more time. They're going to give you less and less. So respect their time. Say hi. Be polite. But say, you know, what's your question, and say what you've tried and all the rest. Like, don't write an essay, but have it like even just bullet points. and so on. And then when they get back to you, then at least they can get back to you with an answer, and they want to get back to you because they know you've tried certain things, rather than I've Googled it, I found nothing. But what did you find? Like, make that person's life easier, and so they can help you. So I love that. That's really good with the time zones as well.
Yeah. Alrighty, and we have one question over here, which is how much knowledge should we have of a particular tech stack on a project before getting started? So I believe this is specifically for if you want to contribute to open source in terms of coding. So yeah.
You could have none really, because as soon as you know one language, other languages become easier to pick up. So even if you have no language, though, as I mentioned before, you can add so much value by looking at the project with a fresh pair of eyes, and then people can teach you if they know you're committed to their project. And true story, I know some DevRel people who get paid some really good money, and they didn't even know how to code or know the technology in the project. But what they did was they said, I love this project, love the community, love the idea of it. And they just got involved and added value on to the project, added value on socials. So they would figure something out and say, oh, I think you're missing, kind of, you've got steps 1, 2, and 3 in your documentation, but I think you're missing kind of a 1B where you need to CD into that directory. It's like obvious for people if they know it. If they don't know it, it's not obvious. And they started adding value a little bit like that. And they said, oh, I've run the project locally, but I don't get how this works or what this means in code. People started helping them because they were helping the project. Then every time they learned something about the project, they would share it on socials and say, hey, have you ever tried this? You just need to do this one command. And look, this is what my result, this is what happened. And then the project got funding, and I'm talking millions in funding. And who they're going to hire is their DevRel, the person who is going through the project, adding so much value regularly, and also shouting them out in the community. And so they hired them, and then they taught them how to code, and like it's an amazing story, and it happens quite often. So I think it's about adding value. It's not about knowing how to know the tech stack, because the people in the community, in the core project and the community and the wider community will help you if you're adding value to the project in their community. So again, it's that whole two-way street thing. I think is really, really important.
Yeah. And we talked about like contributing to EddieHub, right? And which is the particular theme of this session. So can you mention it like again? Can you maybe elaborate on that? How students can get involved with the coding aspect of EddieHub?
Sure. So we have a GitHub organization, EddieHub community, which you can all join. You raise an issue on the support repo, and with the right issue. So when you raise an issue, I'll tell you which templates you want, review my open source project, review my resume, or invitation to the GitHub organization. If you do that, it will just automatically send you an invite, and you can join our GitHub organization. So therefore, our community can find you, and people from your community can find us. Again, that whole two-way street thing. We have a variety of projects, from simple projects to hard projects, to TypeScript, to all sorts of stuff. So you can get involved in the projects that take your interest at the level that you want. So yeah, just do get involved, and the community will help. And also, in our Discord, we have a first issue channel where we want to help people get involved into open source. So some will be coding, some will not be coding. And you can pick the ones you want, so you can get that green square. The EddieHub community, it's not just me posting there now, it's other people posting their projects, and they really want to help you get your green squares. I mean, some people in our community get over 100 green squares a day. So they're more than happy to give away like green squares. And by what I mean is, if we're having a discussion in Discord and go, oh, that'd be a good idea, we should raise an issue. We'll put the idea in Good First Issue channel and say, can someone raise this issue? Here's a link to the context, and so on, because then you can get the green square. We have so many, we don't need more. And we want other people just to kind of get involved, because when they get that green square and they get involved, they will get involved even more and go into the coding. But they have lots of coding ones. And funny enough, a lot of people don't want those ones because there might be a bit more work. But that's how you're going to stand out further. Imagine, I have my clients in my Discord community, and some of them have started noticing other people in the community who are students, but they're doing great things. Like we've got, I don't know if we still got Siddharth in the chat, and I always give Siddharth a shout out for this. I mean, there's so many amazing people in our community, but Siddharth goes to different talks online and as an attendee, and starts a GitHub discussion in our support repo every time he goes to a conference, and every talk he goes to will put a new thread about what his takeaway from that talk was. And my clients have noticed that. I said, who is this person? This is amazing. Maybe we can pay them to go to our events and just do this. So it is about adding value to the community, and then companies will notice. And I think that's really important, that you need to give good, whatever you do, it needs to be good. Don't try and spend the extra 10 seconds on it and you're going to stand out. And I think that's the one thing to notice. Like if you're doing some coding, run the linter locally, just check. It's not the end of the world if it fails on CI, but if it fails on CI, check why it failed and have a look. Don't say, why is my pull request not being reviewed? DM the person, DM this person on Twitter, DM them on Discord. It's not being reviewed. And then the maintainer goes, has a look, and it's failing on CI because you missed a semicolon or whatever, because then you're not going to get that attention next time round. So I think it's important. I mean, if CI fails, it's not the end of the world, but make sure you're the one that fixes it and not someone else prompts you to say, is everything okay? So there are so many ways people can get involved. And just one last tip, I see so many projects on GitHub that have, like, I don't know, package JSON or the equivalent in other languages, and they have commands in there that they run locally, like a linter or running tests, whatever it is. Huge value to a project. Put a GitHub action to run those commands, and it's quite simple to do with a few lines of YAML, and it will just add so much value to the project, and so many maintainers will love you for it. I've done that on a few projects, and the amount of amazing DMs and shout outs I've got has been epic.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks a lot for sharing that, Eddie. And we have one question over here, which is finding motivation to make comeback after a failure in any of the project.
Yes, that's another great question. I've had lots of failures of projects, but failures can be different, right? I've had failures with clients, and I'm always transparent and truthful. The project, for whatever reason, didn't meet its deadline. So some companies just can it. Some companies say, okay, you get an extension. Some projects finish early. It really is so many variables. It's not just the technical side. It's also, the focus of the project, other things being changed while you're working on them, which does happen. People don't understand that when things are locked into sprint, they shouldn't be changed and all the rest. So there are those types of failures. And there's failures in open source projects. I've started many open source projects that I've now archived, or I've left them, forgotten about them. They're way out of date now. I'm not interested in them at all, but I still leave them publicly. So there are so many failures, but there are so many successes. I think the more you do, the more likely you are to get better. You're more likely to grow your network, the more likely to have a successful project. Because I find every open source or every client project I do, it's better than the last one, because I take the learnings from the last one, because there's a lot of overlap. If you look at I've got a client project at the moment called Stargate. It's on my current GitHub profile. I might move it to the community organization, but I've automated absolutely everything on that. And it wasn't hard to do, because I had a previous client project or a previous open source project where I automated one thing. So I managed to copy that kind of YAML config over. And then there was another project that had a different automation, copy that over. So now everything's automated, from running linters before you do a commit locally. It automatically does a check for you, so everyone can just check everything is fine. To when a pull request is merged in, it creates the release notes from the people's commits, creates a release on GitHub, creates a Docker container, deploys a Docker container to the GitHub container registry, also then deploys that to Kubernetes, and it's all in sync. And then documentation gets deployed to GitHub pages, and they all have a version number that matches. So if anything breaks, we kind of know where it got stuck and all the rest. So learn from the failures. I think we all fail, and that's one thing that I think we need to realize. I think that's sound effects. So we all fail, and we should just kind of try again, and next time it will be better. Riding a bike again, you will fall off the bike at the beginning, but you're less likely to fall off the second time, less likely to fall off the third time, but you might fall off again on the 10th time, because now you're going faster, you're going down a kind of a different terrain. And as you learn more, you will have some mini failures, but they should be quite small. And like on the bike, you might have a wobble, but you kind of don't quite fall because you're better at balancing yourself. So just keep going forward. Just don't let anything get you down. Take the next step. And technology is changing. And, open source, being in tech, is hard and easy at the same time. It's hard because things are changing all the time. It's easy, I think. Well, easy is the wrong word. It's fun because people want you to get into tech, and they want you to add value. They want you to get involved in their community and their project. So I think that's a real positive. It's really open and transparent. Whereas it is hard because things are always changing, but that's part of the fun. And so, I mean, just, don't let it get you down, and the community will pick up. I have my down days. Don't get me wrong. I have days where I've had like, I don't know, a bad meeting with a client or whatever. Or something I wanted to do today is taking me 10 times longer, and I spent a week on it and I'm still not there yet. But the community really helped me out. I need to give a big shout out to not just EddieHub. EddieHub's amazing, but the entire kind of tech community. They really, I find, pick me up. They help me when I'm stuck and when I'm down. And also sometimes when I'm working like loads of hours, they say, Eddie, kind of, you've been on Discord for a long time, for many days straight. Maybe you take some downtime. And I love it how the community, if you're involved in the community, they'll notice kind of when you're getting a bit stressed or you need help. But if you just come to the community to say, I'm stuck, help me, I'm stuck, help me. After the second or third time, people are less likely to respond to you quickly, less likely to help you because you're just there to suck. You need to give value back, whatever it is. Like we've got some people in our community who are quite new to tech, but when someone gets stuck, they say, well, maybe explain it to me. I won't know the answer, but maybe by explaining it to me, what we call rubber ducking can help. And the amount of times they've written, thank you so much, like person A or B, for your help. You really helped me. And they wrote back saying, I did nothing. And they actually didn't do nothing apart from listen, but that's their way of helping. And I think that's really important. And so when those people get stuck, they have like 10 people who want to help them. And especially with time zones, having more people across the world to help you is really good, because when you don't have to wait like 12 hours to get a reply. So I think just try and help everyone else and they'll help you.
That's a very good point. And change is inevitable. So always keep learning, Yeah. All right. And we have this one question that we, got quite a lot of times. It's like when they first, whenever they see an issue, it's already been assigned. And a follow-up question on that is sometimes there are issues assigned for more than a month, but nothing is done on it. And that happens quite a lot of times. So how do we deal with that?
So that's a really, really great question. So some issues do get assigned quite quickly if they're a lot easier. So some people also try to get assigned like 5-10 issues, and it takes them like months to do them. Don't be that person for one. And you can always ask in the community, are there any issues for good first issues as well? Because some of them might not have been raised yet, or some might have been labeled incorrectly, or some people, it might be a bit harder than good first issue, but because you've asked, they're more than happy to give you more help on it. And I've done that before. I say, well, I haven't got any on this project. I haven't got any good first issues, but this project's a bit harder, but we'll help you more on it. So so do ask. And do say, I've looked for other good first issues, but they seem assigned already. That shows you've done your research. And if an issue's been assigned for, I would say more than, I don't know, a week, and there's no pull request yet, do check. There's no pull request. Then I would say, look, is anything happening on this? Can I do this issue? Because in EddieHub, we have lots of issues that have been assigned to people for maybe a month, and I won't reassign it until someone else asks the question. Maybe that's wrong on my behalf, but I can't keep going through all these different issues all the time. I have 900 GitHub notifications to catch up over the last 7 days. So I can't keep going through everything and check. But if someone asks and I get the notification, which might take me a few days to reply, but someone else in the community might help, because you have amazing moderators and maintainers in the community, might say, hey, yes, this person asked a month ago, they've done nothing, let's reassign it to you instead. And so, and a lot of the time, the first person will come, hey, I'm actually going to do this. I'm actually going to do this. And it's like, well, you've been hogging it for a month. Hogging issues is not a good thing. I see. That's why I was saying at the beginning, don't try and get 3 really easy issues that are for you. Don't be that person. Do one, and when you've done that, you can ask for the next one.
Definitely. And yeah, thanks a lot for sharing, Eddie. Those are some really nice insights. And I've shared the links to all the, Eddie communities in the chat, so you can check it out. But I believe we answered all the questions, and yeah, that was great. Well, thanks for joining, Eddie. And it was really amazing having you. Always a pleasure. And
awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. What I would suggest is just get involved and check out Eddie's channel. Make sure you subscribe and join the community, see the amazing work they're doing and how you can get involved, because it's for everyone. And yeah, Eddie, any closing remarks from your side?
Just a few. As I mentioned before, add value to this awesome YouTube channel, Code for Cause. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe below if you haven't already. and take a screenshot, share it on socials, and what's 1 or 2 things that you learned or found interesting from this live stream, and tag us, then we will reshare it and you will grow your community. So hopefully this was useful to you. If you think of any other questions, let me know. Ask me publicly. And so other people can also answer back, give you their perspective. Other people who are reading can also learn from it. Get your green square today, tomorrow. And what are we saying in the community? A green square a day keeps Eddie away, although they want to chase you to get those green squares. And yeah, at 5 p.m. GMT, that's in about 6.5 hours. We'll be doing live stream reviewing your open source projects and giving all your open source project shout outs and giving away some green squares. As always, we will discover, the great thing is we're reviewing these open source projects, we'll discover they're missing a description, they're missing, I don't know, an issue template. And we will ask you, the people watching, to raise those issues so you can get those green squares. So I won't be raising them. I want everyone watching raising them. So great way to get green squares. But thank you again so much, Kunal, for having me on your awesome channel and your awesome community. It's great to be here.
Amazing. Yeah. Thanks for joining, Eddie. And make sure you check out Eddie's live stream, which is at 10:30 p.m. IST for those of you who have trouble with time zones, including me. So yeah. Cool. All right. Well, take care, and we'll see you in the next live stream. Bye-bye.
Bye.